Raise your fist together. I am somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody.
Red and yellow, brown, black, and white. We're all precious in God's sight. Everybody is somebody. Stop the violence. Save the children. Stop bullying. Save the children.
Hold your head high. Stick your chest out. You can make it. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive.
The push is on, and we're grateful to be in your home on this Saturday morning. I'm Reverend William Hall. I'm the pastor of St. James Community Church here in Chicago. Today our broadcast is going to be a little different. You're going to see some footage from our time down in Selma. You're going to hear some perspectives. And most of all, we want you to stay connected to Rainbow Push because this work is very, very important to the betterment of humanity. So today, again, tell somebody, tweet somebody, remind somebody, nudge somebody. Let them know that the push is on. We definitely have work to do. And if you missed today, or you got to step away, that's fine. You can subscribe on YouTube. Go to our page. Always be able to catch up and see some previous broadcasts. So again, welcome to this Saturday morning forum with a reflection from Selma.
We're standing here at the foot of the Edmund Pettus Bridge as marchers on Bloody Sunday were crossing this bridge on their way to Montgomery, from Selma to Montgomery. We're at the foot of the Selma end of the bridge en route to Montgomery. The challenge is we're looking at this bridge and we think about crossing from one kind of ideology to a new ideology, one kind of pain to opening up the process that's more inclusive for all Americans. And so today, as we stand on this bridge, we have members of Congress who will be crossing shortly. And we hope that as they cross this bridge, they will cross with the understanding that we expect them to pass the Constitutional Voting Rights Act, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. We expect them to look at Selma as it is today, remembering what it was in 1965. We want reinvestment in Selma in housing, transportation, and in education. Everybody is somebody. Everybody deserves a part of the American pie. And so we're here not just to commemorate the past, but to push ourselves across this bridge into the future. There must be a change. Selma is the epicenter of where the change needs to begin. When you look at the level of disinvestment, we want to make sure that there's a new understanding. We want to invest in Selma and other Selmas around the United States.
Well, we're here at the Dexter Baptist Church, the home of the ministry of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and in the city of Montgomery, the home of civil rights. You know, when we talk about Bloody Sunday happening March 6, 1965, it's almost as if the needle of history has been pushed back. Right now, we're still fighting for the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. We're still fighting for the Freedom to Vote Act. We're still fighting for the Electoral Count Act. We're still fighting, believe it or not, for the George Floyd Justice Act. And so much is at stake right now in 19 states around the United States. There is many forms of voter suppression legislation that wants to marginalize votes, wants to purge votes, wants to eliminate early voting, and want your ballot to get in the box but never count it. We want to minimize and marginalize constitutional offices like the Secretary of State and replace them with an arbitrary agent that can in and of themselves end free and fair elections. These are the core values of civil rights and what Dr. King and so many others put their lives on the line. March 6, 1965 You saw John Lewis, a 25-year-old young college student, lead 600 marchers across that bridge. This year, there'll be several thousands, along with the first woman of color vice president, joining Reverend Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton and Bishop William Barber, and Attorney Barbara Unwine, and many, many others who are pushing the cause of freedom, because our challenge in civil rights is this fundamental reality. We're free, but we're not equal. And the cost of freedom, the blood, sweat, and tears of people like Attorney Fred Gray here in Montgomery and Rosa Parks. You know, in this city is the Legacy Museum, and I was so captivated and overwhelmed by all of the imagery and all of the information and the legacy, the brutality, the suffering, the sorrow, the shame, and the pain. Many years ago, I had the opportunity of visiting Gorée Island in Ghana and seeing how slaves were treated and housed and brutalized. Being in the Legacy Museum and being in the National Museum for Peace and Justice and seeing those many, many tributes to those who have been lynched. And just days ago, believe it or not, they passed federal legislation finally that outlawed lynching. This is 2022. This is not 1972. This is not 1982. It is 2022, 50 years plus later. Legislation is now federal, banning and outlawing lynching. And so we're here not only commemorating, but recommitting ourselves, reorganizing and regalvanizing ourselves for the fight of freedom and justice, particularly equal protection under the law.
Hello, my name is Christiana Gray, and today I will be reciting for you Being Black in the Workplace by an anonymous author. They take my kindness for weakness. They take my silence for speechless. They consider my uniqueness strange. They call my language slang. They consider my success accidental. They minimize my intelligence to potential. They see my confidence as conceit. They see my mistakes as defeat. My questions mean I'm unaware. My advancement is somehow unfair. Any praise is preferential treatment. To voice concern is discontentment. If I stand up for myself, I'm too defensive. If I don't trust them, I'm too apprehensive. I'm defiant if I separate, yet I'm fake if I assimilate. So constantly I am faced with workplace hate. My character is constantly under attack. Pride for my race makes me too black. Yet I can only be me. And who am I, you might ask? I'm that strong black person who stands on the backs of my ancestors' achievements with an erect spine, pointing to the stars with pride, dignity, and respect, which lets the workplace in America know I not only possess the ability to play by the rules, but I make them too. Thank you.
Today, we pause to really dedicate this broadcast to all of those in Ukraine that are responding to the Russian advancement, many of whom are African, many of whom are Asians, and many of whom are people of color, as well as women, children, and families who are now refugees trying to escape the onslaught of the Russian advancement in Ukraine. So we're praying for those families that they can be reunited. We're praying for the families who've lost loved ones and have no way of contacting them. We're also dedicating this broadcast to the memory of Miss Arthurine Lucy Foster, the first African-American female student at the University of Alabama who died at age 88. We also dedicate this broadcast to the memory of television anchor Renee Poussaint, who died this week. She's a well-known documentarian, well-known anchor at NBC and WLS television, a phenomenal journalist, and so we're praying for her family. And in a very special way, we want to dedicate this broadcast to Miss Amelia Boykin. Many of us traveled back to Selma this week to commemorate Bloody Sunday, but also to march forward in 2022 for voting rights enforcement, the passage of a voting rights, a federally protected right to vote law, the John Lewis voting rights law, as well as a federal law that will protect the process for elections across the country. So many states are rolling back voting rights, suppressing the vote. We are being challenged at every level. And so today, in Women's History Month, we pay a special tribute to Miss Amelia Boykin, who was a voting rights activist long before many of us were even born. In the 1930s, she was pushing for voting rights. She is the reason that the march from Selma, Alabama to Montgomery was organized. She was the one who invited Dr. King to come to Selma and to lead this march across that Edmund Pettus Bridge for voting rights. And so we tribute, during Women's History Month, a woman who stands in the tradition of so many of women of the movement who put herself at risk. Many of us know that John Lewis was beaten on the bridge, so was Miss Amelia Boynton, and she did not give up. She did not give in. She continued to go and fight for our right to vote as citizens, even after she had been brutalized by the very people that should have been protecting her and other marchers. And so we salute Mrs. Boykin, and we thank God for the consistent presence of the Boykin family. So we want you to hear and see a little bit of what we were able to experience this year in Selma, 57 years later. And then you will also hear next week where we're going. You're going to hear from Reverend Jackson. You're going to hear from Reverend William Barber, Reverend Al Sharpton. You're going to hear from a number of activists, Attorney Ben Crump, the families of Ahmaud Arbery were there marching this year across the bridge. We have so many young people that weren't even born, were not even thought of 57 years ago. They will tell you why they marched this week, this year, and what it meant to them. And we're going to hear from the first African-American female Vice President of the United States, the Honorable Kamala Harris, as she led us across that Edmund Pettus Bridge this year. And so I think and hope and pray that you will enjoy this broadcast. We want you to get involved, get inspired. We have a number of things that are coming up. We have our Wall Street project coming up this month. You don't want to miss it. It's 25 years since Reverend Jackson organized the Wall Street project, and it was the first time that he organized helping Wall Street celebrate Dr. King's birthday holiday. He was able to ring the bell on Dr. King's birthday and show us the transition from being traded as commodities on Wall Street to now having seats on the stock exchange. You will hear about that. You can watch our virtual Wall Street conference, and you'll hear more about that. And then our convention is coming up in June. I want you to be a part of it. All roads lead to our convention, which will open on Juneteenth. This is exciting. I'm excited. I hope you are too. See you in New York for Wall Street, and then in June in Chicago on Juneteenth.
Push Excel's goal is to inspire students to strive for excellence in education in spite of personal, family, and community challenges that they might experience. How do we do this? By advocating for educational policies that guarantee equal funding for all students without regard to race or economic standing. By engaging parents, students, and teachers in pursuing high-quality education and striving for educational excellence at every level. And by forging partnerships with community-based and public sector stakeholders in education. Now, Push Excel is a national model program with the purpose of connecting principals, parents, popular personalities, and students in a bond and to support students at every level on the educational ladder. Now, we want you to become a member of the Rainbow Push Coalition and Push Excel. Your annual membership can help us to change policies that impact students, colleges, and universities all around the country. So step up and sign up today. Membership is only $35, and if you're a student or a senior, $15. Just go to our website, rainbowpush.org, and push join to become a member or push donate to support the Push Excel program. You can also text the word Push Excel, that's PUSHEXCEL, to 41444 on your cell phone, and you can give us any amount that you feel comfortable giving or call us at 773-256-2775. Wherever you are, you can support us as we keep pushing for you. And remember to keep hope alive.
We wanted the museum to talk about that ongoing struggle to make this country a democracy. And of course, we highlighted Bloody Sunday. Dr. Reverend Jackson was here at that time. He was a part of SCLC. He worked very closely with Dr. King, and he was here organizing the youth. And so when he heard that we were trying to establish that museum, we were at Brown Chapel, and he put out the call, and we raised $8,000 when he told people to give to Selma. With that $8,000, we started the National Voting Rights Museum with $8,000. We call it a homemade museum.
I am from Indianapolis, Indiana. I am an educator for the past 10 years. Today we are continuing the legacy that our ancestors started. We are marching in their footsteps, continuing their fight in remembrance of what happened 57 years ago when they crossed the bridge and to get rights to vote for people of color.
Make sure that our children know how much we believe in them. Martin Luther King said the coward asked the question, is it safe? He said expediency. asked the question, is it politically correct? He said vanity, asked the question, is it popular? But then he said conscience, asked the question, is it right? And Dr. King concluded there comes a time when one must take a position that's neither popular nor politically correct or not even safe. But there comes a time when one must take a position because their conscience tells them it is the right thing to do. I tell you here in Selma, Alabama, today, it is the right thing to do, to stand up for our children, to speak up for our children, to fight for our children. Because if we don't fight for our children, we can't expect nobody else to fight for our children. And we got to fight for our children until hell freezes over. And then we got to be ready to fight on the ice. That's how much our children mean. Fight the power, our children matter.
Some of us take this as a commemoration weekend rather than a continuation of struggle. This is not a let's go see the bridge. This is about connecting what the bridge symbolized that is being disconnected in these times. And if we do not understand that connection, we make mockery of those that shed blood on that bridge. John Lewis, his family's here. Where is his brothers? Stand up. His brothers are here. Where's John Lewis's brother? When John Lewis and Amelia Boykin and Reverend Hosea Williams were tear gassed and shed blood on that bridge, they did not do that to become a tourist site for the state of Alabama. They did that because a young man named Jimmy Lee Jackson had been at a voting rally in Marion, Alabama. They were raided in the middle of the rally, and when they ran, Jimmy Lee Jackson was killed. A black woman in Selma, Alabama, and others, named Amelia Boykin, later Amelia Boykin Robinson, said we must protest what they did to Jimmy and to disenfranchising us from the right to vote. And they determined that they were going to march from Selma to Montgomery. Cause of Jackson, killed in Marion. Come on in, Martin Luther King III and Andrea King, you all come in right on time. We cue this up because we work together. The reason why I wanted Martin to come in then is Coretta Scott King is from Marion, Alabama. They called the march from Selma to Montgomery. James Orange and others came down. Reverend Hosea Williams, C.T. Vivian, John Lewis. Now, one of the things that I try to tell our young people in National Action Network, Natasha, is that all of this rumbling and back and forward that we hear, tensions in the movement, is not new. When you get people that get all shook up, when there's fighting and infighting in the movement, it only tells me they ain't been in the movement long. This ain't new. When they were in Selma 57 years ago, there were people telling John Lewis, don't march with them. That's the old guard. They too moderate. There were some of the preachers saying, don't march with them. And John Lewis decided against some of his friends that he was going to march with Hosea and Dr. King. Y'all ain't the first folk that had infighting. And Dr. King would say that we will take it all as creative tension. Some of us were fighting more each other than we were fighting those that were opposed to us. Some of it on ideology, Damon. Some of it was who was going to be on the news that night. Always amazed me How we'd have some of our most militant brothers jump on the front of the line, pushing the press back, knocking them out the way, and then run home to see if they made the news that night after they knocked the camera down. But if you understand this, you understand that even in biblical days, they had not gotten out of Egypt good before they rebelled against Moses. God opened up the Red Sea, and they got across the Red Sea into the wilderness and started having a boogie-woogie party in moments after they were liberated. This is not new. And just as John Lewis and Martin Luther King and Coretta Scott King and others opened up America, and John Lewis and Jesse Jackson and the next wave came, we went just like the children of Israel. Soon as we got to mainstream television, soon as we got to mainstream culture, we start calling ourselves the N-word. Start calling our mama hoes and bees. Wilderness behavior. They wouldn't let you on TV. And then we fought to put you on, and you drop your pants down and call your mama a bee. Wilderness behavior. We went from singing "We Shall Overcome" to "It's Hard Out Here for a Pimp," which is just like worshiping the golden calves and trinkets. Wilderness behavior. And those that tarry, those like Clyburn, were gone to jail. Those like John Lewis that was beaten. Those like Jesse Jackson, who came down here as a student, Chicago Theological Seminary, in the North. Saw what was going on in Selma. He had led at AT&T in South Carolina. Said, we got to go. Brought Carlos down here. It's where he connected with C.T. Vivian and Dr. King, and went on and built a movement, ran for president, and registered voters all over this country. Congresswoman Chair Lady Beatty, those registered voters that he put on in 84 and 88 elected blacks that would not call his name after they got elected. He'd come in, do the work, and you mainstream yourself away from the very struggle that sponsored you. 88, Jackson led the Wilder becoming governor in Virginia in 89, and Dave Dinkins becoming mayor of New York, all the way to Barack Obama being president. These stones mean something. You didn't get here by yourself. You ain't that smart. You're not that gifted. You are the result of people that laid down on that bridge and made a way for you. Nowhere in the Bible, nowhere in history do people disrespect the elders. Amen. But you got this new Negro woke thing that you feel that you can't make it unless you condemn those that are ahead of you. The struggle is not about competition, it's about continuity. And if you can't respect Dr. King, Amelia Boyd, John Lewis, Jesse Jackson, then don't get on that bridge today, because you don't know what these stones mean. Jesse Jackson.
In this moment, our challenge is from one end of this bridge to the other, the bridge of voter suppression, the footsteps of vicious voter obstacles, telling people that they cannot register to vote, taking away polling places, reducing the numbers, all the evil that we've seen. And in Texas, just this week on March 1st, last week, we saw people being, 30 to 40% of people being told that their ballot applications for mail-in ballots were rejected. You see, people, this fight is real. But what I want to remind them is that they can come up with every voter suppression law they want, but they forgot about one thing. They forgot about one thing. They forgot about us, because we are the fighters. We are the ones who will not allow anything to stop us. And don't forget, in the spirit of Fannie Lou Hamer, in the spirit of the amazing Amelia Boynton, in the spirit of Ella Baker, in the spirit of the amazing Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth and Frederick Douglass and Dr. King and Congressman John Lewis and C.T. Vivian and so many others. In that spirit, everybody has to understand one thing as we move forward. That is that we are unstoppable.
Say vision. People without a vision shall perish. We have to have a vision of what America will look like. The bottom line is right now, in this moment, there are brothers and sisters in the Ukraine that are fighting for their lives, that we're saying that they literally are standing and fighting for their lives and for democracy. But I also want to let you know that the very same source, while we're not doing the same thing, and in no way I want to undermine what is happening with them right now, but the same source, and thinking that they're not self-determined, that they shouldn't be able to select and choose the folks that they want that govern them, the kind of governance, and to be self-determined, that same kind of spirit is here in the U.S. It is the same spirit that is under the voter suppression. And we have to recognize and connect the two. So at the end of the day, part of what we're doing is not just about the vote, y'all. It's literally around how do we stand in the fullness of our power as God has created us, that we are deserving of literally creating the kind of nation we desire and deserve.
They wanted me to tell you that Selma is not about us a day, it's about a declaration. And the declaration is, our deadline is victory. No, what the Democrats say is not our deadline. What the Senate chair says is our deadline. When it comes to our voting rights, when it comes to living wage, when it comes to health care, when it comes to protecting the environment, our deadline always has and always will be victory. We don't stop until we win. We have one mantra: forward together and not one step back. Nobody gets to tell us what we can't do. Forward together and not one step back. Until we have voting rights, forward together and not one step back. Until everybody has health care, forward together, not one step back. Until everybody has living wages, forward together, not one step back.
When we get to the other side, we have to commit to be different. That means not only voting, that means holding our elected officials accountable when we vote them into office. If you haven't shown up at a school board meeting, a county commission meeting, a city council meeting, a mayor's breakfast, I want you to pledge that between now and the summer, you will do at least one of those. You will sit there, you will ask questions, you will prepare yourself to truly fight as a full citizen of this country. I know that if we do it, we can win, because in 1965, how many people crossed this bridge or attempted to cross this bridge and were battered? 50? 100? Look how many of us there are today. And look how many more resources we have available to us that they didn't have. We ought to be able to do better than they did. And so I'm asking you to commit yourself today that we will honor the foot soldiers and honor those who came before us by pushing with all our might, and by never giving up, and by determining that we are going to fight for the freedom, justice, and full citizenship of everyone in our communities.
Why are we here? Because injustice
on the ballot box is happening across the nation. We want to see free and fair elections and self-determination in the Ukraine. We want to see free and fair elections in the state of Alabama, Georgia, Atlanta, all over the nation. The last thing I want to share with you is we stand in the shadow today of General Edmund Pettus, a former U.S. senator, a slaveholder, a person that fought against our rights at every turn. We stand here today because of our ancestors. We remember Miss Boynton. We remember Reverend Martin Luther King. We remember Mr. John Lewis. We remember SCLC. We remember all those that have fought. We come here today out of gratitude to commemorate, to thank God for the bridge that he had us cross. That same bridge that has the name of General Edmund Pettus is now the name for a freedom highway that opened up democracy in America after 346 years.
You must believe we can make it. Let nothing break your spirit. We march today as a symbolic march. March through the 65 and blood was shed. It was not easy that day. We fought for the right to vote. I went to jail at 18 years old, 62 years ago. We're still fighting the fight. We're not going to give up the fight. We're going to win this. We're going to win this fight. So we'll win this fight. We'll win this fight. Win this fight. Because we matter. I am somebody. I am somebody. Respect me. Protect me. Never neglect me. And my mind can conceive it. My heart can believe it. I know I can achieve it. My mind is a pearl. I can do anything in the world. I will vote. My vote, citizenship. Our vote, citizenship. Our vote matters. Democracy for Ukraine and democracy for Haiti.
57 years ago, when 600 brave individuals set out from Selma, they were marching for the most fundamental right of American citizenship, the right to vote. They knew that if they wanted true freedom, if they wanted to claim what was theirs by birth and by right, they had to march on this bridge on that day. They were prepared for the worst. And on this bridge, on that day, the worst found them. Their peaceful protest was met with crushing violence. They were kneeling when the state troopers charged. They were praying when the billy cubs struck. On this bridge, on that day, those brave marchers continued to push forward to secure the freedom to vote. And they were pushed back. Today, we stand on this bridge at a different time. We again, however, find ourselves caught in between injustice and justice. Across the country, states passed anti-voting laws that ban drop boxes and restrict early voting, laws that make it illegal to give food and water to voters who are standing and waiting in line, laws that, put simply, make it much more difficult for people to vote with an expectation that then we will not vote, undemocratic laws, un-American laws. And so last year, we all joined together, we locked arms and lifted our voices and fought to pass federal voting rights legislation. We brought the Freedom to Vote Act, and yes, the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, to the floor of the United States Senate. And on the night of January 19th, every Republican senator in the United States Senate voted to block passage of this law. Over the past few months, I have traveled our country, talking with so many people about our fight, our collective fight, to safeguard and strengthen the freedom to vote. Faith leaders, community leaders, students, activists, and organizers. And yes, people are tired and frustrated, and at times scared. Scared that we risk losing the rights we fought so hard to win. I believe at this moment we are faced with a choice that we have faced many times before. Do we stand or do we fight? Gathered at this bridge, reflecting on its history, yes, I know the path forward is clear. Remember, it took 3 tries for the marchers to cross the bridge. It took their sweat, their tears, their blood. It took their resilience, their determination, and their courage. And yes, it even took the protection of the National Guard and federal marshals. In a moment of great uncertainty, those marchers pressed forward and they crossed. We must do the same. We must lock our arms and march forward. We will not let setbacks stop us. We know that honoring the legacy of those who marched then demands that we continue to push Congress to pass federal voting rights legislation. And it also demands we continue to push the Senate to not allow an arcane rule to deny us this sacred right. The legacy of those who are with us today: Annie Pearl Avery, Charles Malden, Bernard Lafayette, Cheyenne Webb Kreisberg. The legacy of those who are smiling down on us: Marie Foster, J.D. Hunter, C.J. Adams, Amelia Boynton Robinson, and all of those courageous foot soldiers for freedom who named and whose names we know and sometimes names we will not know, but who lift us up nonetheless. The last time I was in Selma was the last time Congressman John Lewis stood on this bridge. For his whole life, and especially that day, John Lewis was the embodiment of strength and resilience, the epitome of dignity, grace, and perseverance. As he stood here that day, you could see the body that carried him across this bridge all those years ago had become fragile. But the spirit that carried him was as strong as ever. John Lewis, well, he never gave up the fight. He returned to this bridge again and again and again. It is that clarity of purpose, that relentless dedication, that spirit, the spirit of Selma that we summon today. We will keep fighting. We will keep organizing. We will keep shouting. We will keep making good trouble. And we will march on until victory is won. Thank you all.
Good morning, I'm Todd Yeary, and this is Due Process. I'm here in front of the Legacy Museum in Montgomery, Alabama. This location, this site, is the place where Bryan Stevenson has put together a chronology of the history of the fight for the human dignity of Black and brown bodies. We gather here on this weekend to commemorate 57 years since the crossing of the Edmund Pettus Bridge on Bloody Sunday. But it is the reminder that the violence that was exacted against us was to stop us from exercising our right to vote. And so we come here remembering that from the transatlantic slave trade through plantation slavery, through the period of Jim Crow, and now the prison industrial complex, this is a site where we should never forget that the right to vote is so sacred that there are many lives that made it possible for us to vote. So today on Due Process, we're going to talk about those issues that matter, but we should never forget that this is why we all must vote. We begin with what some might consider surprising news. The U.S. Supreme Court has declined to intervene in the election map disputes in Pennsylvania and North Carolina. The court denied certiorari, or cert, for two political parties in the two states, with Justice Brett Kavanaugh noting that while the issues presented were serious, the case in North Carolina in particular did not present a proper opportunity to analyze them. Meanwhile, in Pennsylvania, Republican candidates, along with the Susquehanna County Commissioner Alan Hall and others, argued in their motion that the U.S. Constitution gives the power to set time and manner of elections solely to state legislators. Based on their interpretation, they argued that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court had overstepped its authority in its recent selection of a congressional map. In North Carolina, petitioners argued that district maps were within the purview of the legislature, not the courts. The decision of the justices not to intervene means that the redrawn maps in Pennsylvania and North Carolina will likely stand and will contribute to a more balanced distribution of legislative seats nationally. To that end, some now believe that this reapportionment will lead to the most balanced congressional maps in over 50 years. This balance will mean that the midterm elections will carry much greater weight in determining which party will control the gavels in the various standing committees in the United States House of Representatives. And an outcome that many felt would never take place, Congress has given final approval to the Emmett Till anti-lynching bill that makes lynching a federal hate crime. Many senators from both parties argued that the passage of the bill was long overdue, with Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and Senator Tim Scott noting that the timing was long past to address the nation's troubling history around racially driven mob violence. The first anti-lynching bill was introduced in 1900 by Congressman George Henry White of North Carolina. At the time, he was the only black lawmaker in Congress. Though the bill was introduced, it never made it to the floor for debate, and since then, more than 200 or more similar bills have been filed without sufficient action. Congressman Bobby Rush, the lead sponsor of the bill again in this session, stated that the passage of the bill, quote, sends a clear and emphatic message that our nation will no longer ignore this shameful chapter of our history. The bill was unanimously passed by the Senate after passing the House by an overwhelming majority. The bill now awaits President Biden's signature to become law. Ryan Coogler, the successful director of Black Panther, found himself handcuffed as a suspected bank robber after entering a Bank of America branch to withdraw money from his own account. The 35-year-old movie director went to the counter and presented a withdrawal slip with a note written on the back asking for the withdrawal of $12,000 cash, and that the counting of the money should be done discreetly. The bank teller interpreted the note to be an indication of an attempted bank robbery, recognizing that the withdrawal exceeded $10,000 and that Coogler's account triggered an alert based on the amount of the withdrawal. After notifying her supervisor of her suspicions, the police were called, and Atlanta police officers arrived on the scene, and they detained two of Kugler's colleagues who were waiting outside the bank in the car and handcuffed Kugler while attempting to verify his identity. Once his identity had been verified and his ownership of the bank account confirmed, Kugler and his colleagues were released. A Bank of America spokesperson stated, "We deeply regret that this incident occurred. It never should have happened, and we have apologized to Mr. Kugler." Some have argued that this incident is a further indication of the types of racial microaggressions that have only been exacerbated since the killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis in 2020. The Miami Dolphins have requested that the class action lawsuit filed by Brian Flores be sent to arbitration. Lawyers for Flores have urged Commissioner Roger Goodell to deny the request, noting that arbitration tends to reinforce the status quo rather than promoting substantive change. Flores, an African-American coach, filed suit last month after he was fired by the Dolphins despite leading the team to its first back-to-back winning seasons in almost 20 years. The suit alleges that Dolphins owner Stephen Ross offered to pay Flores $100,000 for each loss during the 2019 campaign in order to improve the team's draft position. The Dolphins wrote to Goodell requesting that the commissioner compel arbitration for the discrimination complaints and the other claims alleged between Flores and the team. And while the commissioner has not yet made a decision, observers are waiting for his response. The NFL has hired former U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch to be lead lawyer in the litigation. Since the filing of the suit, Flores has been hired by the Pittsburgh Steelers as a senior defensive assistant coach. The questions concerning opportunity and equity in professional sports and in the National Football League persist, and we will continue to monitor the progress of the Flores suit and other litigation against the league to ensure that fairness is not compromised in the outcome. Today, we celebrate the 90th birthday of a preacher, a statesman, a mayor, an ambassador, and an ally in the fight for human and civil rights. Today, Andrew Young turns 90 years young. Young, who joined the civil rights movement after pastoring in Thomasville, Georgia, served as a lieutenant to Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He also served as director of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the SCLC, after Dr. King's assassination in 1968. He went on to be elected to Congress in 1972 as the first black elected since Reconstruction. President Jimmy Carter appointed him UN ambassador, a position in which he served until 1979. Andrew Young was elected mayor of Atlanta in 1982 and served 2 terms. During that time, the city hosted the 1988 Democratic Convention, a significant convention for Reverend Jackson, and he laid the foundation for the bid to bring the 1996 Summer Olympic Games to the city. His birthday celebration included a Peace and Unity March on yesterday, and the events will reach their zenith with a birthday gala tonight. Reverend Jackson will be in attendance. The Rainbow Push Coalition family joins the world in saying, "Happy birthday, Andrew Young. Your witness and your works are noteworthy, and your long years of service and inspiration." As thousands gathered in Selma, Alabama last weekend, and thousands more retraced the steps in the march from Selma to Montgomery, we are reminded that the events of the past week are not merely acts of commemoration. With every marcher, every step, every speech, and every meeting, There continues to be a renewed commitment to the principles that fueled the original march in 1965. While the tactics of voter suppression and intimidation are more nuanced today, the effects of the denial of the right to vote are unmistakable. While democracy in Ukraine is under a relentless assault fueled by hostility and war, democracy in America is also under a relentless assault fueled by white supremacy and racial animus. Every citizen's right, every citizen's status is grounded in access to the ballot box. We should never forget the poll tests that many who came before us had to take, with questions like, how many bubbles are in a bar of soap? Or how many green jelly beans are in the jar? The assault on the right to vote is in essence an assault on the dignity of people. This week, the people came back to Selma to declare that we dare not forget. We will not forget the price that has been paid, the battles that have been fought, the blood that has been shed, and the feet that trod the stony road from Selma to Montgomery. Yet, with a steady beat, we have returned and we will continue to fight for the right to vote for all people, because that is what justice requires of all of us in this moment. Our legacy and our future is in our feet, in our hearts, and in our hands. Now, let's keep hope alive. For more information about our work and to support our efforts to advance human rights and social justice, go to rainbowpush.org. That is this week's Due Process. I'm Todd Geary.
We're excited to get more people involved in Rainbow Push, supporting the programs of Push for Excellence and the Citizenship Education Fund. If you're interested in impacting public policies, if you believe in the scholarships that we give to thousands of students each and every year, you can become a policymaker by becoming a member of Rainbow Push right now. For an annual membership of $35, or if you're a student or senior, $15, you can help us make a difference in the lives of millions. How do you become a member? Visit our website at rainbowpush.org and press join. Or maybe you'd like to support us. You can text the word PUSH, that's PUSH, to 41444 on your cell phone, and you can give any amount you feel comfortable giving. You can also call us at 773-256-2775. Or go to rainbowpush.org and push donate. Wherever you are, you can support us as we keep pushing for you.